Hello, everybody. And it's my great pleasure to talk to you today to present a personal point of view, which I've called Web3 for Enterprises, business model for the new internet. And you might wonder why I've got a picture of a marketplace on my front slide. Well, that's because it's my point of view that we are entering a new world, a new data economy or digital economy. And what's going to be absolutely critical is the buying and selling of access to data sets to drive machine learning, deep learning, and AI. And what I'm interested in is the role of blockchain to create a fair economic model to drive this new economy, and what might be the role, potential role of enterprises in this new economy. So just a couple of things that you might like to know about me. First of all, I'm almost retired. So I'm here speaking to you because I want to be speaking to you. And secondly, I have spent the last 6 or 7 years working on just enterprise blockchain. So let's start then by setting the scene and thinking about the context and thinking about the problem, the exam question that we're trying to address here. And it's my opinion that the current generation is facing a series of generational type problems. How are we going to stop the sea from filling up with plastic bottles? How are we going to create sustainable and circular economies? How are we going to put an electric car on every drive when we don't have the infrastructure to support the charging? How are we going to create a carbon neutral economy and perform carbon accounting? And it's my opinion that we can only do this if we can change the behavior of the consumer. We need to change the behavior of a lot of people a little bit. And I think we're moving towards a world where that consumer behavior will be governed by the technology. And I think we're seeing the coming together of 3 technologies to solve these problems. So blockchain, which is giving us the behavioral economics, the overriding AI and machine learning, and the machine-to-machine economy, as we're moving to the Internet of Things and as your car is talking to your charging point. So what are 3 things of interest as we move to this new economy? What are 3 things that would encourage you to move this way as an enterprise? Well, the first thing is that no one company has all the data needed to solve these problems. So the only way that we can solve these is to share data and to collaborate to compete in this new environment. But there is a downside to that, and that's around the governance model, because it means the enterprise has to be prepared to give up a little bit of control in order to move into this collaborative environment. For example, control over its data. Now, there are mitigating strategies. Perhaps we'll only share insights. Perhaps we'll use zero-knowledge proof technology. The second thing is, I think the current generation has really been bitten by the Facebook model. And while that was just monetizing their marketing data, as we move into this new environment and we're sharing things like our health data, we're sharing things like the electric power level in my battery, I think we need to move to a very different model where it is the consumer that owns and controls access to this data in terms of their identity and things that they own. But there is a downside to this, of course, which is that we trade off that fairness for ease of use. So, for example, how are we going to manage custody of keys, and what happens if somebody loses their keys? So there's again a need to overcome the problems of the consumer experience. And then the final thing is the fiat crypto interface. So the great advantage of having digital money and digital assets is the programmability of those digital assets, and also the ability to clear and settle at the same time. That means to transfer value and ownership at the same time. So this means that we can move into much greater velocity of markets, and we can also critically move into micro transactions. One of the problems today is the financial services industry takes something like 2% for processing all the payments and the support of the current payments rails. And if we're going to be trading access to data in a real-time feed, we need to be much more agile, much lower cost. And of course, with this new digital money, the cost of a transaction of a payment is tending towards the cost of an email. So this is vital then to build these microtransactions, is vital then to build this next generation of applications. The downside of that, though, is we have to control the volatility of the exchange rate between the crypto and fiat, and we have to be compliant. So we're looking for the regulation and the compliance regime to land. So 3 reasons why, and 3 challenges for this new model. If we look at the market and what are the dimensions of the market opportunity, I think that we are choosing to collaborate because we can make the overall pie bigger. It's better to have a smaller slice of a bigger pie rather than a bigger piece of a smaller pie. So there are 2 dimensions to this market: network effects and synergies, and decentralization. So it's very lonely to be the only person on a network. We're talking here about building marketplaces. So you are looking for people that you can trade with. So we're looking to grow network effects and get more people onto the network. And we're looking for synergies. We're looking to create a series of economic utilities, such as payments, finance, provenance, that we can reuse and then innovate on top. Now, on the lower axis, we have decentralization, which is about control. And inevitably, the enterprise will want to start off taking more control. So a relatively small community, perhaps only collaborating with your friends, perhaps looking to improve the quality of data in the real world between buyers and sellers, so that we can tokenize that data and take it into the digital economy. So here we're probably looking to shave off the edges of the world as it is today and drive some efficiency improvements as we have one shared view of the truth of what's going on in the market. But as we tokenize this data, as we move into the ability to exchange value and ownership at the same time, this is giving us the ability to start introducing new models, new ways of working, and much more liquidity in markets. We can start to, for example, tokenize the ownership of a car, look at new car ownership models, and start to innovate around more liquid and digital models. But where this thing really takes off is where we open the valve up even further and we become fully decentralized. So now anyone can join. And we're now operating at the level of the market, and we're starting to solve those problems through behavioral change at scale. Now, if we think about what's going on underneath this, at the simplest level, we have 3 levels to our architecture. We have at the top end our wallet, where the consumer, the user, is holding their access to their tokens. And at the highest level, there's going to be something around identity, whether that's a token or a credential, access to data that you own and are managing, whether that's fungible or non-fungible, and money. Money that you can use in an exchange of value. It's then the smart contract that is governing that business exchange of value, the business model, as buying and selling takes place. But also critically is starting to manage the governance of the community as perhaps we move from a more traditional consortium into perhaps a more open, decentralized organization, a decentralized autonomous organization, as smart contracts take on the governing function. And then at the bottom, of course, we have the blockchain itself, which is storing the state, who owns what and who has done what to what. As we expand that model out a little bit, we have the wallet at the top with our 3 tokens. And one thing that I think is absolutely critical is that we are now establishing identity ultimately at the level of the internet, establishing ownership at the level of the internet. So we're looking to overcome the silos that we've had in Web 2, where, for example, you establish your identity for each individual website or for each individual platform. So what that means is these tokens are portable across industries, which means we can start being more innovative in the types of services that we can offer. So, for example, we might see energy and automotive come together as we start to look at supporting booking, charging of your car charge point, looking to perhaps trade surplus energy in your battery back to the grid. We might even extend this to healthcare, as we're looking to support disabled drivers, perhaps booking into a charge point. Underneath that, we have that layer of economic utilities around establishing identity, establishing provenance, paying and financing, the exchange of value, tokenizing that real world data and making it available for smart contracts, and driving incentives for helpful behavior. The smart contract, of course, is also helping to govern the community in terms of voting to make decisions, handling the reserve fund, as we look at that crypto fiat volatility. But it is that DAO native token. It is that money that we're building for our community, which is being accepted for buying and selling on the community, that I think is the critical element to this model. This is where we have health money or energy money or Volkswagen money, depending on who it is that is governing this community and who is building out our marketplace as we aim towards that transformation of markets. And then at the bottom, of course, we have our ledgers, be they permissioned or permissionless. If we look at how that decentralized autonomous organization might start to work, well, we're building marketplaces. And another way to think of a marketplace is a little bit like a slot machine, a vending machine. You put a token in and you get access to data out to drive your application. You put a token in, you get access to that service as you're looking to charge your car. And this token is our native token for our marketplace. This is our energy money or our health money. We'll be onboarding this from fiat. And what we're looking to do is we're looking to stop leakage of this back out to be redeemed into fiat. And what we want to do is to create a marketplace of lots and lots of services, lots and lots of buying and selling, to encourage that money to stay inside the community so we can grow a marketplace and we can grow network effects as we get more and more buying and selling opportunities. We're building these reusable set of utilities around handling the reserve fund, around handling voting on the governance side, and maybe helping to set the market price, price discovery, looking to drive liquidity, looking to drive financing and payments. So this is how we build out our decentralized autonomous organization. And if we start to look at some of the value flows that sit within that, here we have our major actors within our community. So we have the wallet, which is being driven by the consumer or possibly by the car, because we're now, or the charge point, because we're now into the economy of things, and they may have their wallet on the left-hand side. We have the ledger on the right-hand side. In the middle, we have the marketplace, the vending machine, which is our DAO. At the top, we have our data sellers selling access to their data. And at the bottom, we have buyers of that data, be they enterprises buying access to that data, perhaps for internal use, or the innovators that are using that data and the insights from that data to build their applications. And then within our marketplace, we have those utilities, those reusable utilities we were talking about, around establishing identity, establishing provenance of what it is we're buying, and driving those financial transactions by way of payments and finance, etc. We then have the data exchange, and then we have the applications. So we can start to build value flows, and we've modeled value flows and built cash flow projections to show how this model could then flex as we start to drive transactions through it. So, for example, if I'm on the wallet side, I'm a consumer, I'm taking my car to that charge point. The wallet may well be in the car. It's passing value into the marketplace to buy access to that service. And of course, that value is going to be shared between the seller of the data that's driving the service and the provider of the application. And then also supporting other actors within the network that need to be rewarded, such as the infrastructure providers who are validating and updating transactions onto the ledger. So we can start to build a series of value flows. And if you look at where you might start, perhaps if you were in that automotive sphere, you're going to have to start, if you're looking to move into this new marketplace around these new services, we're going to have to start around establishing the identity of the car and getting that sorted. We're going to have to establish the provenance of the car, in particular things like the battery and what's in the battery and where did the battery come from. We're going to have to be able to talk to the leasing community because electric cars are so expensive. The majority of these are going to be leased. We're going to be looking to tokenize the ownership, perhaps, of that car, so that we can look into new models of perhaps selling idle time. You know, why is your car sat for 20 hours out of 24 doing nothing on the tarmac? There's an opportunity to, in a sharing economy, to sell that spare time of that car to friends and family or to people with a good reputation. And then critically, we're going to need that car e-wallet, that ability for the car to have its own wallet, own tokens within its wallet, and to be able to do transactions such as that charging type transaction that we were talking about. So I've rattled through that, and I think I'm just about on my 20 minutes now. So just to summarize and say, I've given you a introduction to a book that I'm writing, which has got the same title here, where I go into these ideas in a lot greater depth and start to explore use cases and models in a lot more depth. But here is an introduction, my point of view, of how I think enterprises can start thinking about adopting Web3 and moving into this new digital economy.
Okay, we have a question from the room.
And you're quite experienced man, and you've seen a number of different changes in the industries. How do you compare the pace of the adoption of blockchain by enterprises compared to previous dot-coms and other internet adoption, things of this nature?
So there's one very famous quote I'm going to give from a venture capitalist, which is to say, being too early is the same as being wrong. And I think that you go back to 2015, 2016, 2017, and there was a huge emphasis on enterprise blockchain to optimize the world as it is. And I think that missed the real McCoy here, which is this behavioral change of the consumer. So I think that we've had a bit of a false start. And I do know there are lots of statistics you can read comparing the adoption of Web3 to the original internet. I think we've gone down a bit of a blind alley over the last few years, and we're starting to refocus on what the real opportunity is for this technology. So I actually think we're fairly early on in the real adoption of this technology, because there are very few large-scale projects that have grown out of that first tranche of experimentation. I think we now need to revisit this, and I think we now need to come into a much more hybrid environment of where we have permissioned and permissionless working together. We do need permissioned for privacy reasons in some use cases, but we need that behavioral change and the incentive model from the permissionless world. So rather a long answer, but I think we had a bit of a false start, and I think we're only really getting going now, would be my opinion.